This is Akil Robertson with your RETV This Day in History moment. Known for her civil rights activism, Fannie Lou Hammer was called the spirit of the civil rights movement. Born a sharecropper, she worked from the age of 6 as a timekeeper on the cotton plantation. Later, she became involved in the Black freedom struggle and eventually moved on to become a field secretary for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the SNCC. Fannie Lou Hammer, born in Mississippi, was working in the fields when she was 6 and was only educated through the 6th grade. She married in 1942 and adopted 2 children. She went to work on the plantation where her husband drove a tractor, first as a field worker and then as a plantation's timekeeper. She also attended meetings of the Regional Council of Negro Leadership, where speakers addressed self-help, civil rights, and voting rights. In 1962, Fannie Lou Hammer volunteered to work with Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, registering Black voters in the South. She and the rest of her family lost their jobs for the involvement, and the SNCC hired her as a field secretary. She was able to register to vote for the first time in her life in 1963, and then taught others what they'd need to know to pass the then required literacy test. In her organizing work, she often led the activists in singing Christian hymns about freedom, This Little Light of Mine, and others. She helped organize the 1964 Freedom Summer in Mississippi, a campaign sponsored by the SNCC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Congress of Racial Equality, and the NAACP. In 1963, after being charged with disorderly conduct for refusing to go along with restaurants' white-only policy, Hammer was beaten so badly in jail and refused medical treatment that she was permanently disabled. Because African Americans were excluded from the Mississippi Democratic Party, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, the MFDP, was formed with Fannie Lou Hammer as founding member and vice president. The FMDP sent an alternate delegation to the 1964 Democratic National Convention with 64 Black and 4 white delegates. Fannie Lou Hammer testified to the convention's Credentials Committee about violence and discrimination faced by Black voters trying to register to vote, and her testimony was televised nationally. The MFDP refused a compromise to offer to seat 2 of their delegates and returned to further political organizing in Mississippi. And in 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act. From 1968 to 1971, Fannie Lou Hammer was a member of the Democratic National Committee for Mississippi. Her 1960 lawsuit, Hammer versus Sunflower County, demanded school desegregation. She ran unsuccessfully for the Mississippi State Senate in 1971 and successfully for the delegate to the Democratic National Convention of 1972. She also lectured extensively and was known for her signature line she often used, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." She was known as a powerful speaker, and her singing voice lent another power to civil rights meetings. Fannie Lou Hammer brought a Head Start program to her local community to form a local pig bank cooperative. With the help of the National Council of Negro Women, and later to find the Freedom Farm Cooperative, she helped found the National Women's Political Caucus in 1971, speaking for the inclusion of racial issues and the feminist agenda. In 1972, the Mississippi House of Representatives passed a resolution honoring her national and state activism, passing 116-0. Suffering from breast cancer, diabetes, and heart problems, Fannie Lou Hammer died in Mississippi in 1977. She published To Praise Our Bridges, an autobiography, in 1967. June Jordan published a biography of Fannie Lou Hammer in 1972, and Kay Mills published This Little Light of Mine, The Life of Fannie Lou Hammer in 1993. Again, this is Akil Robertson with your RETV This Day in History moment.